nobody pays anyone to do anything other than solve a problem.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Seven Figure Journey podcast. Today, I'm your host. My name is Brett Gilliland. Every single one of these episodes, one of my team members or I has the very distinct pleasure of interviewing another real business owner who are sharing real lessons from their journey and real challenges that they're still working with. And we just love doing this every episode. So I want to introduce today's guest. His name is Rob Murphy. Rob is the founder of Affinity Recruiting. They're based out of Alabama, but they recruit businesses for businesses all across the country, from businesses with about ten employees on the low end to about 250 employees on the high end. That's the range, the size of businesses that they serve across all sorts of industries, all kinds of roles. So, Rob, welcome to the show. Thank you for taking your time to be with us today.
Thanks so much, Brett. Glad to be here.
Rob, other than the really quick intro that I gave of Affinity Recruiting, what would you like our listeners to have in their mind about Affinity, and just give us a little context before we get into our interview?
Sure. We're a small recruiting company. There's 5 of us full time on the team right now today. And we just enjoy unlocking the future for small business owners and leaders who are running up against personnel challenges. It's hard to recruit. It's harder to recruit well, and we have kind of a range of offerings everywhere from sit down and grab a beer and give you some thoughts and tips on things you could tweak in your own recruiting processes for no money, all the way up to engaging in a contingent or retained search where we really are a core part of finding and delivering the best available people for you. We're here to help, and we have fun doing it.
All right, very good. So, in people's minds, we have fixed in their minds recruiting company, help small businesses find those great people. Love it. Perfect. Well, you're speaking to an audience full of those types of businesses. And now, if they have some of those services, they can reach out to Affinity Recruiting. All right, so Rob, let's jump into the meat of our interview, where you get to both share something or a couple things that are really have been helpful to you in your own growth journey, and then we'll switch over to challenges, things that you're dealing with today that I might be able to help with. So let's start with, it's not when you first open the business. It's a few years in or several years in now, and you've grown to a place of you've gotten that thing off the ground. It's working. You're serving businesses successfully. You personally have had to learn some lessons as the founder, as the CEO or leader of this business, if you will. What are a couple key lessons that you've learned that might be helpful to some of our listeners?
Sure. The two traits that we feel are most valuable in any candidate for any hire are resourcefulness and humility. And that very much applies to myself more than anyone else as well. So the things that will cause you to be successful are being humble and realizing you don't have all the answers, and then being resourceful enough to go find those answers, to go solve problems, to enjoy tackling a problem. Nobody pays anyone to do anything other than solve a problem. And
Hmm.
so if there's a problem in front of you that's good, it means you have a chance to get better at solving problems. And so people need to be reaching out to people like you, Brett, for insight and advice. People who have experienced the business world and have some real life experience and lessons to share. I've invested pretty heavily myself in coaches and advisors, and our company would have gone out of business multiple times without that.
Okay, I think it's interesting how you frame that up, Rob, because you got to the punchline, which is, we don't have all the answers, and there are advisors out there. But you started with a nugget that I think a lot of our listeners are going to benefit from when you said, "Hey, we look for a couple qualities in all the best candidates." And I've had many conversations with many business owners about not knowing exactly what to look for in their candidates. I don't even know what to look for. Well, you just said humility and resourcefulness, right? They got to not be so full of ego and think they have all the answers. They couldn't use some help. And they at the same time, they got to have this balancing trait of, but I'm going to figure it out. Like I believe in myself enough to know that I can go figure it out, but I'm not
Yes.
full of myself, right? So
Yes.
that's right there. That's hugely important. How did you come to that and recognizing that those were key attributes in any great candidate?
You know, I've read some books around it. I've had business coaches share thoughts. I've interviewed. I actually ran a podcast myself for a little while. I still do it, when I can, and put out some episodes on Fridays. But just a lot of conversations with people, just drilling down. Hey, can you tell me what is the commonality amongst your best employees? And having
Mm,
that same conversation with a lot of people. And those are the two traits that just always rise to the top and have more so than anything else. And yeah, to sum it up in a sentence, the ideal mentality. Now, they also obviously have to have industry specific skills. They need to have some people
sure.
skills and soft skills and all that. But
We'll give it as table stakes that they actually have to know how to do the job, right?
right, yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And but if you could sum up the perfect candidate, those two traits in one sentence, as you just did, it's hey, I don't have all the answers, but I'll get you the answers you need.
Yeah. I will go figure it out with help. Like I'll go
Mhm.
find the people who can help me figure it out.
Yep.
Yeah, that's so good. Thank you for I love you teeing that up. And then you shared you've invested a lot in yourself to have the coaches, advisors, community, whatever you needed to get to give you some of those insights as a learning entrepreneur, as a growing business owner. Um, what I mean, I'm curious to know what you see as the correlation between the growth or success of your business and the growth and development of yourself. Like, do you see a correlation in your mind? If so, like, how would you describe that?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, our team right now is full of the type of people I just described, right? And so they're looking to get better. They're looking to learn. When I go in, I mean, right before this, I was wrapping up some notes that, I had a phone call late last night with a recruiter in Washington, D.C., who's been doing it for 25 years, had an incredible amount of success. And I took a ton of notes on our call, just picking his brain on, hey, what do you do? How do you do it? What sets you apart from your competition? How do you get away with billing these enormous fees that you bill to people that are way more than my company's ever billed to anyone? And how do you sell that? And um, so took a lot of notes on what he had to say, put it in a Google Doc, and shared it with my team. And so when I'm learning, we're all learning, and I'm also
Mm,
setting an example that we're going to be people who are always trying to get better at what we do. And I think that not only do the people on the team get you know the benefit of seeing a sheet of notes right there, but they also get the mentality of we are people who are constantly working to get better at what we do.
yeah, I love that very specific example to the question I asked. Uh, and while you didn't answer it directly, what I heard you say is you believe so strongly that you have to be growing in order for your business to grow, that there is a
Mhm.
correlation between business
Yes,
success and your own growth.
absolutely.
And I'm not picking on you for not answering it directly, but I just want to call that out for everybody listening because I think sometimes as human beings, we can easily fall into a pattern of just being comfortable or complacent or whatever word you want to use, right?
Yeah.
And if we really say, here's what I want for my business, like I want to be growing, I want to reach further, I want to have more impact, we can help more people if we got there. It does require us to level up
Mhm.
individually as leaders, as business owners specifically.
Well, and
Now,
to answer your
yeah.
question a little bit more specifically, I would say yes. I'm a huge believer in the phrase that if you're not growing, you're dying, and I think
Mm,
it's true in business more than anything else. And so, yes, there's an enormous correlation between we have to be growing, getting better, getting smarter. Mark Cuban says that your attitude about getting better should be that you're working like there's somebody out there working 24/7 to take it all away from you, and I'm a big believer in that. Now, I'm not
yeah.
also the guy that works 80 hours a week. I don't believe that you should work just constantly, but I think that Working smarter is a necessity all the time.
Well, that mindset, and some Mark Cuban can be a little bit of a polarizing
Yeah.
personality, right? Whether you like him or not, the idea that little thought of you need to be working as though somebody is working 24/7 to pull you down or take it all away from you. I don't like to work from a place of paranoia, but
Right.
I love the push for I have to get better,
Hmm.
and we got to improve collectively if we don't want to lose this valuable thing that we've worked hard to create. Like, it is
Yeah.
at risk. There's a reason
Yeah.
we talk about risk.
And there's tons of competition out there. And I love what you said. Yeah. We're not going to work out of a state of paranoia, but and I also, too, I mean, I have three little kids, and I'm the head coach of a high school basketball team. And so I'm not going to work the crazy hours, but that's also part of my thing is like, okay, well, if I'm going to work 30 or 35 hours a week, which is about what I do, and I'm still going to beat our competition that works 60 hours a week, I'd better be doing all the smartest and best things in those 30 to 35 hours if I'm gonna, because I do kind of live in a state of, okay, I'm probably gonna work about half the hours and I have to beat the competition anyway. So how are we gonna be as sharp as
How are we
possible?
going to do that? That shows that problem solving, right? It's like, here's my
Exactly.
problem. I have
Yes.
this much time, and I got to keep these kind of results. How are we going to make it happen?
Yes, exactly.
Love that. Okay, cool. And by the way, anybody who wants to see a really clear um, LinkedIn profile, go to Rob Murphy's profile. You'll say I remember it because it stuck out. It says, I'm happy to talk about Jesus, family, and recruiting. Like, it sounds like those are your priorities in that order. And
Yes.
I just really respected that. I
Thank
happen to
you.
share, you know, uh, uh, whether or not we share the same church membership, I share the same faith. So I like that. But regardless of a listener's belief system, what is it that matters to you? And let's get clear on that. One, two, three. And anyway, I loved seeing that in your LinkedIn profile.
Awesome. Thank
Okay, Rob. Let's shift gears. That was hugely valuable. People can finish their run or their commute and hang up right now, or turn us off, and they would have gotten something out of it. But we are going to shift to the part where I hope it had some value to you, and by extension to others who are listening. So you would be the first to say, after that tee up today, you'd be the first to say you don't have all the answers, but that you are figuring things out. So, what is a challenge or puzzle that you're working on right now as it relates to the scalability or the growth of your business that I might be able to help you with today?
Absolutely. The biggest puzzle in the business, as we have five people in it right now, we've existed a little over 4 years. What is the right balance between the culture of we're a small business that has a lot more flexibility than a big corporate America business
Hmm.
versus we know that processes are crucial to sustaining, building, and growing success.
Mm.
And one of the key things that our team members say when they come work for us, as opposed to working at a big corporate company, is that the culture is so refreshing. You know, and a big part of that is that we have way less processes than the big
Right.
companies. But we
Yes.
also know that, just the fact that we meet at the same time every Monday and Wednesday and go through the same, conversations doesn't mean that we have enough processes in our business. And, we have some recruiters who are on the cutting edge with technology and do everything from a very highly technical perspective. We have also, probably definitely our top biller last year was a guy who did all of his record keeping, note taking, everything on pieces of paper in manila folders in a file cabinet.
Right.
And so I don't want to look at him and say, hey, change the way you do everything because he's killing it.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, as we look at all these different things around, we, we do have some growth goals. We're not trying to grow, at light speed, but we'd like to get from our current revenue to, two or three times that over the next few years. And
Yeah.
so what's the right amount of process moving forward for us to embrace?
It's a really great issue. I appreciate you bringing it up. I've done lots of these interviews, and I genuinely can't think of another interview where that question has been brought up. So
Hmm.
I I appreciate you bringing it. Lots of people come on here and say, like, how do I know I need standard operating procedures, like we need to document stuff. I've talked about that quite a bit, but the twist here is what's the right level of that stuff for the size of business that we are today, and how do we keep, what's the right way to think about that? So love the issue. Before we get into some ideas, and Rob, I hope to give you some very practical ways of thinking about it, maybe even some tools. um, what's at stake if you don't figure this out? Like, let's say you don't have enough process, or you over process the thing, like you make it too heavy for the stage that you're at. What's the cost to you guys in terms of, I don't know, efficiency either way, too little, too much, um, client experience, revenue, profits. I mean, I don't know what comes to mind for you as to what's at stake if you don't get it right. Because maybe the answer is don't worry about it yet. Like,
Yeah,
it's not worth the concern. So what
sure.
could be at stake?
Well, first of all, I have to call you out because you said previously that you're not great at sales, but that is the best sales question. What's at
Oh,
stake
okay.
if we don't solve this problem, right?
Okay. Thank you.
We gotta
I
set the,
appreciate that. Thank
yeah,
you, Rob.
yeah. We
I'm
gotta
trying to learn
establish,
just like you. I'm learning.
gotta establish the scope and the impact of the problem. So the answer is that the culture of our company is at stake, which is
Okay.
extremely important to us. And right now we have a great thing going. We're on the same page with each other. We get along great. We have a great camaraderie amongst the team and even amongst the family members of the team members. We just, we all get along. We have a great time together. Um, so, yeah, I mean, what's at stake is that I'm not going to take for granted that that'll last forever. I want it to, and I want it to continue to grow in a way that we can continue to welcome more people and families, and everything continues to be great from an interpersonal relationships and team dynamics perspective. But I also know that that's unlikely, and it's not going to last forever. So what's at stake is getting it to last for as long as possible and to improve as we get a little bit bigger and as we um, you know grow the business.
Yeah. Okay. It sounds to me, Rob, like the real issue isn't so much about the right sizing of process. It might be more about we have the culture feel that we like today, and the concern is the structure or the level of process that might be required to grow beyond that could wreck this thing that we really enjoy. Is that true?
Yes, and also if we don't put any more processes in place, we could be hindering the growth and stagnating the business, which would also cause over time that culture to erode due to frustration and disagreements.
Yeah, and or unrealized potential in
Mhm.
individual growth, right? You have
Yeah,
people who are like, I want to keep growing, especially your people, because they're like,
yeah,
I like to learn, I like to grow, I like
yeah.
to keep getting better.
And I'll
And
tell
it's like,
you, nobody on our team is saying, "Hey, I want to make exactly the same amount of money in 5 years that I make today."
right. Nobody anywhere. Nobody anywhere. Yeah. Okay. Good point. So you know that there's a need for growth, and yet you want to keep this thing special that you guys have today. So that's the backdrop. It sounds pretty important. Okay. So what can we do about that? I think there's several things that come to mind. One is more principle based, and I want to use that term very intentionally. There's a reason that bigger companies have a lot more structure, and it's because we need to be able to take targeted, coordinated action. So right now, with 5 full-time people and maybe some contract recruiter help here and there, whatever you guys have, it's not that hard to have the whole team come together, get really clear about what we're up to next and how we're going to get there and who's doing what. Like the targeted, coordinated action is relatively simple right now. So it doesn't require a bunch of additional structural load, right? The additional process overhead. 100-person recruiting firm or agency or company would require more structure to have targeted coordinated action across now departments and teams and more people, right? Like as the structure of the business builds out, the sophistication or the maturity of the processes have to evolve with that to support it.
Hmm.
So the principle is, let's right size the processes to get the benefit of targeted. We want the outcome of targeted coordinated action. That's what we want.
Hmm.
We want everybody excited about the common objective and coordinated in a way that we're pulling together. Kind of like, and I love that you're a basketball coach too. Doesn't have to be basketball, but that you're involved in helping presumably younger people come to, you said high school, right? Yeah.
Hmm.
Younger people come together, individuals who are trying to figure out themselves, let alone come together and be one as a unit on the court, right? That's hard. So you do certain things to build a culture, to build certain processes in place, to take those individuals and bring them together as one when it's time to get the work done. So the principle here is, let's use the right amount of structure without doing too much to make, but the thing that is a must is we have to take targeted coordinated action. Okay, so that's on the one hand. On the other hand, from a cultural perspective, you don't want to lose the connections. It's working really well, and as we get bigger, I don't see processes taking away from the connection. It might be that the organization structure growing would start to pull you apart. Just the number of people would make it feel less, you know, I don't know, less family like or less friend like. Um, and so let me say one thing about that, and then we'll shift to we'll go back to processes. So I was part of a growth journey where we went from 7 figures in revenue to 100 million. And
Oh,
over the course of a year, we hired almost 200 people one year,
oh,
right? And we had the amazing culture thing, and we were doing everything we could to keep it alive and well as we got bigger. Here's what I would say about that. You can still have what is now enjoyed by everybody as a one team kind of feeling. As you get bigger, you need leaders who create that same type of thing in their teams or their departments as those form. So once in a while, you'll still get to do all company things like all hands meetings or an annual celebration event or whatever. Like you can bring everybody together, but then in departments or teams, you can do more of those informal things like, hey, we all got together for a barbecue, or we all, whatever. Like you're not going to do a bunch of that company wide anymore, but you can still maintain a strong purpose in your business and a set of values that everybody shares, to where that they have a feeling of belongingness with everyone, even if they're not close with them. But you have like smaller gatherings, or I don't mean smaller, they could be larger than the one you're having now, but groups are getting together doing the types of things that the whole business can do today, if that makes sense. So I watched us do that effectively, and it was all around building a culture on purpose and values, very consistent on those, and then enough structure, enough meeting rhythm to where I would recommend once a month an all team meeting where everybody in the company, even if you have 20, 30, 80 people, everybody knows, here's what we did last month, here's what we're doing this month. We get to highlight a few people for living our values. We get to highlight some client success stories. There's some shared experience things that you can create in meeting rhythm that will help you to scale that culture. But then the getting together and socializing and having fun together, that happens in teams or in departments, um, still on a regular basis. Is that helpful a little bit,
yeah,
Rob?
I love
Yeah.
that. Hmm.
Okay, let's jump back around to processes. Most business owners are not a fan of process. They're like, except when they start to realize how valuable it is to creating a scalable and sellable asset, right?
Yeah.
Because you got to have something that works consistently to transfer ownership to somebody else. If you're not worried about an exit someday, and or you're not worried about the increasing complexity of a growing team really coming together in a powerful way to take that targeted coordinated action, like you could bag processes all together and say, we're just going to have fun here, we're going to do great work, we're going to have fun, let's not worry about all this process stuff. But you would start to see some inefficiencies form. You would see, this group over here taking action that, the other group also took action, or they took action differently, and so now it looks weird to the client. I mean, you would start to see weird stuff popping up. So we all know there needs to be some process. um, but I wish I had a magic number for like a percentage of time or energy spent on these processes. I don't. But what you need is the right meeting rhythm. And I heard you mention, hey, we always have these 2 meetings every week. There's consistency around that. But then there needs to be enough clarity on roles that if somebody left that box, we would all know the hole that was missing, right? We would know, oh, we need somebody else to come in and pick this up. And if we don't know how to describe what this is beyond just the job title, because we all know, oh, they're the marketing coordinator. Of course,
Yeah.
we'll just get another marketing coordinator. Yeah, but those titles get used pretty broadly or
Mhm.
differently in lots of places. And so we need to know exactly what is expected in that role. How do we measure winning in that role? And so I think even if you just had like the top 3 measures of success for each role, that might be the right level of structure for role clarity at a business your size. Then, because your job is to figure out how to organize work in a way that you can give ownership to somebody and say, oh, we need this new box. Now your name is in it, right?
Mhm.
You own this box. But we got to give a little bit more definition to what's in the box. And at your stage, it might just be the top 3 measure, like the top 3 KPIs that says you're winning in this box if these 3 things are true. And then someday down the line, maybe when you've got closer to 25, 30 people, you start getting formal job descriptions in place as an example of right sizing the structure of the process. So I do believe strongly in a meeting rhythm where every week we're checking in on the operational measures, the dashboard, the scoreboard, right, Mr. Basketball coach? What's the score? How do we know if we're winning? What are the key stats? We should look at that every week. I also think there should be annual planning that keeps us intentional, looking forward. There should be quarterly planning that keeps us on track for that bigger picture. And there should be a monthly meeting that bridges between the day to day, like operational stuff, the dashboard stuff every week, and the long term strategic progress stuff. There's a meeting that's often missing in between, and I think it's a monthly, like, half day. I like half day, so I do quarterly 1 day, annual 2 day, monthly half day, and a weekly, let's call it an hour long, maybe 90-minute meeting to just make sure we know what the score is. We're coordinating well on what needs to go into fixing the score. And so
Mhm.
every month we're dealing with some of the bigger operational things we couldn't hit in a weekly meeting. And we're checking in on the bigger picture things that we would ignore if we just kept our heads down and kept working on the day to day. So
Mhm.
I gave you what I think is an approximate amount of investment: 2 days annual, 1 day quarterly, half day monthly, 1 hour, 90 minutes weekly. And I like daily huddles too, 10,
Mhm.
15 minute, maybe 5, 10 minutes a day kind of thing. But you get to choose what the right size is for you of those meetings. But I wouldn't ignore the meeting. So I guess that's my answer. Is this the best practices around structure are that we need to get these outcomes of targeted, coordinated action, and that needs to be both in the short term for our business and the long term development of our business. Short term, long term balancing act, targeted, coordinated action. If we have the meeting rhythm that supports that, great. Now, a bigger company than yours, I would say, oh, at some point you need 3 days for your annual planning and 2 days for your quarterly and 1 day for your monthly. And you start to get more investment in those things. You might need more official job descriptions. We have this official process for how we sign up a new client, and this official process for closing that job down and collecting final payment or whatever, right? So there needs to be key customer journey processes built out as well. But the level of, well, I'm going to encourage you to start thinking about what is the right size version of that to get the benefits we're reaching for. So first get clear on the benefits, then get clear on the right process structure or steps we need to take, and then I would scale it down to the level that we're at today. Doesn't have to be overcomplicated, but we need consistent experience for our clients. We need this balancing act of short-term, long-term progress in the business, and we need targeted, coordinated action as one team. So those would be some of the criteria I would use to think about how to assess, are we doing too much or too little process. Is any
Awesome.
of that helpful, Rob?
Yeah, absolutely. No, really enjoyed it. I love kind of the tagline and the phrase of targeted, coordinated action. I think that's a great marker of, maybe that's a litmus test for us. Do we have that happening right now or not? Is that what
That's
defines
right.
our weekly and monthly actions?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. I appreciate you calling it out specifically. Just like I liked your humble and willingness to learn thing. Like, sorry, figure it out thing. Humble and figure it out thing. Willingness to learn, and I will be resourceful. Like that was amazing. Sometimes little phrases like that just get to the point of the matter,
Mhm.
and I think that's your main filter for is this the right size? Are we getting targeted, coordinated action without too much investment, too much, I don't know, bureaucracy, too much big company lameness, right? Like we don't want that. We want to keep this small feel great. But as soon as we start losing track of the long-term progress of the business, short-term excellence, and or the client journey is erratic, it's not very consistent. Like we got to have enough process to make sure those things are intact.
Awesome.
All right. Well, Rob, this has been a great episode. Thank you for making your time. We love that you shared some real lessons that were super valuable and that you were willing to hear something that I hope was helpful to you and others. If people want to learn more about Affinity Recruiting or if they want to connect with you online, how would they do that?
Easiest way is just to find me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active to the point of being obnoxious. But if you look me up and want to send me a message or just send me a connection request, that's the easiest way to connect with me.
Okay, and I know because I tried it, and he accepted. He actually accepted the invite from me, so you all can do it too. Rob Murphy. Now there are a few out there. There are a few Rob Murphys. So make
Mhm.
sure you find the one that's Affinity, founder of Affinity Recruiting. And you will see that he likes to talk about Jesus, family, and recruiting. That's the right one. So yeah, reach out to Rob, learn more about Affinity Recruiting, and keep learning and growing yourself. That's why we do these episodes. Rob, thanks for being here. You're a great guest.
Thanks so much for having me, Brett. Really enjoyed it.
Okay, for everybody out there listening, please share, like, review, send this along to another business owner that you know, another seven-figure business owner. We want to help you all in your seven-figure journey. It takes a lot to get to where you are. Congratulations. There's more to learn, and we'd love to bring you as much of that as we can. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time on another episode of the Seven Figure Journey podcast.